Hello and welcome to Kingdom Restoration on Kingdom First TV. I'm here with my co-host. Well, he's the host, I'm the co-host. My brother, Don Hughes, and we've been discussing apostles and prophets working together. And last week went so fast, so let's see where we go today.
Thanks, Sissy. Sometimes the greatest quotes come, Renee, after we're off the air, and Barry brought up a couple things, and Prophet brought us like, okay, no, we need to deal with those next week too. So I love that deal. And I gave them all a green light, audience. We're not going to shy away from controversial things. Sometimes you have to address things so they get corrected and fixed. My question, guys, and I'm going to throw this out today, is in laying a foundation, how important and how much is the soil issue? But equally, how much is involved in the one who's laying the foundation, that as time progresses, soil settles, weight gets put on it, that the imperfections begin to be revealed. So kind of in that concept, I'm going to start with you this time, Apostle Leo. What's your thought?
Well, just to talk about digging foundations in the natural, bringing it into the prophetic. When I'm on a machine and I'm digging a foundation, which I still work, I'm bivocational, so this is an everyday thing for me. So when I'm digging and I hit something soft, I know that I need to dig it out and get to suitable soil, even if it means I have to pour more foundation in that one area. Because I'm not just in the business of selling homes, I'm in the business of building structures that last.
Wow.
So with the sense of understanding how this works, I can also sometimes dig a little bit too deep. Well, when you're just doing it, you don't really care. When you're just planting churches so that you can say that your movement's growing instead of people are growing and something you're building is sustainable, you can just shove a little loose dirt over that low spot and then they'll pour concrete over the top. Nobody will be the wiser till later. Yeah. And later is when that foundation becomes weak because the soil under it wasn't packed. So there's at least two good things here to say. One is the operator, the one that's setting the foundation, needs to be aware of what kind of soil he's in. If it begins to be too easy to dig, you need to pull it all the way out and go ahead and pour foundation, pour mud, concrete in that low spot so that the house is sustainable. We have that in the prophetic happening all the time. We got people that weren't literally called into the ministry. They were just commissioned by so-and-so so they could grow their religious system even more. And those don't stand. Those are the empty buildings down these city corridors that we see the names and the buildings are blacked out and nobody's in there anymore. And the pastor is burned out and people are hurt and all that. Somebody, whoever it was that was supposed to be overseeing that, should have known what the soil was doing as they were doing it. And without the apostles and prophets in there, and we just have pastors that are out setting church movements and growing churches, nobody's determining whether that building can stand.
Good God.
I think it's really important in the process of everything that we're doing right now to understand, as apostles and as prophets working together, we have to be diligent and discerning of soils before we build something. Because if we're not building for success, then we're ultimately building for failure.
That's good. That's really good. Prophet Brent.
So I think it's determined based off if you're building new or if you're going in to remodel. However, the importance of the soil on a new facility is 100%, because I won't start a foundation in the wrong soil. For example, a lot of people don't know this, but the dirt that is on the property is not the same dirt we will use when we start building the pad. You don't merge the same soil. So the foundation is everything. And I'll say this, when it comes to building, the one thing that always leads back to the soil is the same question you're always going to be asked when somebody finds out that they have a foundation problem. The first question always is, how much is this going to cost?
Yes.
Come on.
So everybody has a small education. They just don't have revelation. And we know apostles and prophets make up the foundation. And if it's not built on the apostles and the prophets, then we're always going to see that it was in error.
My God. Wow. Barry, what's your thought, man of God?
Well, I'm not a builder in the natural, but I can tell you this, that, we're definitely in a place now where we have to examine what is there, and we have to know what we're trying to build towards. If we don't have an understanding of what we're trying to build, it really is just people going through motions of shaking up things they don't like, versus, going back to the pattern, establishing in that pattern, understanding what that pattern is, and then being able to lay it. When we talk about in construction terms, we're speaking of very specific elements. When we talk about establishing the kingdom, we're speaking of specific elements, but in the same manner, what field are we planting those, what's the soil of the heart and all these kind of things. But I was just thinking to myself, I don't know the difference in the two things, but what I do know is we've got to be able to articulate it clearly, and we've got to understand the tools that are needed, and that, yes, each soil in each place is different, but we have to know that we're building towards the same thing. We're not building, one Buddhist house and one, Hare Krishna house and one Muslim house, We're not building that. So what is our house, and what are our blueprints? And then, and then that's where I go from there. And then when I get into, there's always factors of implementation, no matter what we're doing. There's going to be, because when you're asking that, I'm thinking, well, there's probably a whole bunch of factors. There's weather factors, there's ground factors, there's all type of factors in construction, especially when dealing with foundational things, and I only know that from building. I had to have a 70-foot buttress in the building I built in California. Before I could build the building, I put $2 million in the ground.
Wow.
So, there's things like buttresses right now. Everybody keeps getting their walls knocked over, like in Louisiana in years in the past, and those buttress walls all collapsed, and it caused the collapse of the whole thing. Many people have had bust those types of walls in their own minds, their own bodies, their own religious thinking, like a prophet was talking about. And so my focus is as soon as we finish with this part, what are we building? What's it look like? Where are we going with it? And how do we know this version, that version, what's primary things versus just aesthetics that are people's preferences? Anyway.
That's
I'll
really
leave it
good.
with that.
Good stuff, Barry. And two, Brent, you said something. I know Leo could echo it. It's amazing when people build a house, when they're budgeting how much they want to spend here, here, and here, and here. Most of the majority of their money is cosmetic that they want to spend. So it's almost like they're going to cut a corner on something that maybe can't be seen now, but the effects of the corner you cut in the beginning for sure is going to be seen down the road when the weight that gets put on that thing and the storms and the things that happen here in Oklahoma, earthquakes, moving, shaking, and then all of that plays into the outcome. Apostle Michael, what's your thoughts?
Oh man, I want to say one thing.
Go ahead, Barry. Say one thing.
Yeah, just it's on what you're talking about, and that is, I was reading a commentary just last week about Cain, and it was saying that, and it kept using the commentary, the phrase that Cain gave Abel. They had to give up an offering, and they kept putting it in like an asterisk, like it had a meaning, and then I kept going through it. And I didn't realize that the original meaning for the word give up is what you decide to sacrifice in order to go up. And that's why my head went, I'm like, what? Like I use it negatively. You gave up. But the real thing is, what are you willing to give up to go up? And that was the thing that hit me. It was like Cain wasn't willing to give up, but he was willing to make a sacrifice, but not willing to give up what was critical, and that was the difference in what was accepted. So do give up. Give up. Don't
do give up. You ain't going up if you don't give up. Good.
Give up.
Michael, go ahead, man. Wow.
Well, I'm sitting here thinking about your question. When laying a foundation, is it the soil or the one laying it? Which one is more important? I think they're both equally important. Jesus put an awful lot of emphasis on the foundation, on the soil.
Yes, he did.
Because he told the parable of the wise man and the foolish man. And the wise man built his house on the rock, and the foolish man built his house on the sand. And then the storms of life came, and it hit both houses. And one house was destroyed, and one house stood strong. So from that parable that Jesus told, obviously, the foundation is extremely important. But by the same token, the one that's laying the foundation is also extremely important. Because if somebody is laying a foundation of religion, if somebody's laying a foundation of a one-man show, if somebody's laying a foundation of an old wineskin or an old paradigm, you know it's not going to stand, and it's not going to produce and release apostolic, prophetic kingdom reality. And so whoever's laying that foundation is also extremely important. Not only do we have to be on the rock of revelation as a solid foundation, but we got to make sure that who's laying it is laying the right stuff. And we've had a lot of stuff built on old paradigms, built on religion, built on a one-man show that cannot carry the weight of apostolic and prophetic kingdom. So I'd say they're equally important.
That's really good. So I think everybody on this screen would probably agree with me that the right rock foundation is the kingdom. That is the foundation that everything has to be built upon. Now, watch this. I know, now, Barry, maybe you can, if you got to correct me, brother, I can handle it. I'm a big boy. But in Acts, I see one specific gift that established doctrine. I don't see all the others bringing doctrine. They build on that doctrine once it's laid. The Bible called it in the book of Acts, the early church, the apostles' doctrine. So, Apostle Deddrick, we're going to shift gears ahead. You want to go that direction? What's your thoughts, sir?
Well, no doubt that, things have to be built upon that doctrine, being that it is foundational. But I do want to kind of add something to that, because there has to be some type of reinforcement along with laying any kind of foundation. And typically that reinforcement is probably in the naturals, the rebar, I think that's what they call it. Something has to, the cement has to have something to hold on to. And many times, when we're laying that foundation, especially from an apostolic position, there are times when we have to go back to its original intent. That's what that to actually formulate that strength. And many times when you're having to lay foundation, you're looking to get to a place where synergy all of a sudden comes into the mix of it all, especially when you're dealing relationally with prophets, because what we're seeing over time is that there has been an avenue in which you had apostles doing this and prophets doing this, and it got away from the idea and the understanding of having to reinforce. When they come together, it creates a synergy when all parts then begin to work together. And so this reinforcement definitely has to be in that process of foundational laying. And when you have in the apostle and you have in the prophets coming together mutually and not just independently, but mutually, with a mutual understanding that, look, we're laying foundation. Even as an apostle, we have to understand that you have to bring in a prophet to help bring in reinforcement, and so we have to develop that kind of relationship, that kind of synergy going forward. And I truly believe that that's part of that doctrine that needs to be laid.
Also, before I go to Prophet Evans, Leo or Brent, when Deddrick was sharing, okay, I'm seeing the image. You walk up on a site and they're about to pour, but the rebar goes in first, and then the concrete goes on that. So it might just be a play on words. If it is, forgive me. So is the rebar attached to the concrete, or is the concrete attached to the rebar? And what is the purpose of the rebar being laid before the concrete's poured? Leo, go first.
Well, they're connected to each other. One, you couldn't separate. As a matter of fact, if you've ever had to dig up anything or separate anything that was poured with wire or rebar, the work of separating them is a daunting task, because they become merged together. They become joined. And as far as which one is holding on to which one, I don't think you could determine that, honestly. It's definitely one of those things that for rebar, it's giving the concrete more structure in case there is breakage or anything, or any movement. It helps that concrete stay together. So it's very needed. But the rebar is just a bunch of goofy bars in the ditch without the concrete.
Yeah.
Brent, what's your thought on that?
It's kind of like Velcro. It's kind of pointless if you've got one side but not the other.
That's good.
So there again, we can in type and shadow, we could almost say that there's your apostle and prophet.
Yep.
But what I love is this, and I wrote this down. You guys know this. Nobody invites their family and friends to come look when the foundation is being poured. There ain't nothing pretty about it. You don't even invite them over until maybe halfway of the framing of the walls is up, and there's going to be a window here and a bathroom here. But you better hope to God when you get to that part of the building program that everybody did their job correctly on the foundational aspect.
Yes.
Prophet Evans, talk to us.
Yes. So I thought about the different soils: the worldly soil, the religious soil, the man-centered soil, and the kingdom soil. We don't want any of those other soils. We need the kingdom soil. And with that, you think about the foundation. Matthew 16 talks about the foundation of the revelation of the identity of Christ, the identity of Jesus. And then 1 Corinthians chapter 3 talks about Paul laying the foundation. How is he talking about? He's talking about doctrine. He's talking about teaching. And in Ephesians chapter 2 is the significant one. It identifies the foundation with persons, not teaching, not revelation, but the person themselves. And so when we think about apostles and prophets, we're thinking about the foundation being graced individuals having a distinctive grace that enables them to shore up everything that stands upon them. And what we're finding is that there are people in positions such as apostles and prophets that do not have the distinctive grace to be those things. And so if you are an apostle but do not have the grace for an apostle, are you really an apostle? And just because an organization dubs you an apostle, if Christ hasn't given you the grace, you are not an apostle. And in essence, you fall into another vein, which is called a false apostle. Yes, your organization identifies you as an apostle, but the kingdom identifies you as one who is false. Your organization or your denomination or your network may call you a prophet, But if the Lord Jesus has not graced you as a prophet, then you are literally labeled by the kingdom a false prophet. And everything that you endeavor to do in those labels will come up short, or worst case scenario, works against Christ. Therefore, now you present yourself not only as a false apostle and a false prophet, but you are now assisting in the vein of the Antichrist spirit. So this is extremely important with what we're talking about, not only the foundation and the soil, but the person itself that is given to be a part of the foundation.
That's really good. Renee?
I wish I could show you all cameras at my house right now. I literally have a crew in my backyard tearing up 2-year-old concrete, 2 years old, because we thought the concrete was good. Our patio extension was beautiful. We've enjoyed it for 2 summers, right? And then this winter, we faced extreme conditions, negative 35 degrees. I'm looking out the window one day and noticed our patio lifted up about 3 inches into the air. Anyway, it cracked. It's being replaced. But it's interesting that when we have different concrete guys come out and give us bids and explain it to us, and one of them took a piece of the concrete that had crumbled and hit it on the ground. He goes, "Hear how hollow that is?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "The aggregate that is in the concrete is insufficient. There should be more aggregate in there to hold that and give it endurance and durability." So sometimes you can miss a little thing, but it causes long-term effects.
But it took a while to manifest.
Yes.
That's why we can be in that honeymoon stage and already have marital problems, but they didn't get dealt with and laying the foundation. My God, somebody help me.
Right.
You know, I know this is what's going to happen when we switch gears. We're going to switch gears because Barry made a great suggestion. We're not going to have enough time to do it here. It will go into next week to session 3. I'm going to start with you, Barry. We've talked about these issues, the struggles, what looks right. From your perspective, and you're phenomenal in leadership, man of God, you really are. What does this look like from someone looking in from the outside? What does it look like, Barry, to start laying or building or correcting this thing with apostles and prophets? In your perspective, where do we start?
Well, I mean, you know, in our business, it's issues of the heart. So we've got to go back to the heart. We've got to align it with Christ, make sure the plumb line is correct and we're centered accurately, you know, on the cornerstone, and that we're built out correctly from that spot. And then, you know, we take the essentials. We Hebrew chapter 6 it, and we take the elementary principles. We, you know, take the basics of character and maturity and stand up. But the reason for that is not to condemn people. It's to help them find their identity in Christ and understand their identity in Christ and how that applies to practical things. And then building on key essentials up from there. That's a short answer, but yes.
It's really good. It will build from that. Apostle Deddrick.
No doubt that having a proper understanding of relationship as it relates to especially those giftings and relationships surrounding the giftings, having a well-rounded, good relationship and understand that the essence of what relationship will do and how it was meant to help bring and reform and bring in correction or alignment. I believe that's definitely a starting point. Is understanding what role relationship will play into bringing any type of realignment or correction that's needed. If things are out of order or need to be brought back into order, there definitely has to be proper relationship. Because when we look at it from a apostolic and prophetic perspective, there's kind of two types. There's what is called a casual relationship between the apostle and the prophet, and then there's that structured relationship that we see that Paul and Silas had. And so, you know, that casual one may be the relationship in passing that Paul had with Agabus, you know, but that structured relationship with Paul and Silas seemed to help bring that structure, and they were able to bring structure in areas in which they were able to travel together, and it seemed to work out well with them. So having that understanding of relationship is what's going to help bring in alignment.
I love the analogy, Deddrick, of the casual, and I love that concept. Prophet Brent.
No, I love that. I know when you're pioneering, you're looking for people that can help you build. You're looking for people that can come in, help bring the right material, bring in and establish upon the foundation what you're building to help push the vision forward. And just what Apostle just said, it's the relationship, how that's structured, how it's casual. It means the world.
All right, Michael, I'm going to do a side note on this, and it really ties into what Barry started. What do you see as the reason why, for a period of time now, apostles and prophets in many organizations and groups don't work together? They don't flow together. They don't minister in meetings together. It's apostles. It's just prophets. It's just pastors. It's just, what does that look like, and how do we fix it? I'm like Barry. We got to be Mr. Fix It now. Let's just don't talk. What do we do to fix it?
I think the reason that we don't see it is people haven't died to self. They've forgotten that we have been crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, we live, not I, but Christ lives in me. We have forgotten that. And we get caught up in this is our position and this is who we are. And we don't deny, because Paul said, I am what I am by the grace of God. Mm-hmm. So we have no credit or nothing that we can say it's us. But I think we fix it by two things. Number one, we model it. People haven't seen it modeled. Number two, we teach it. And if we teach it and we model it, then we will take care of the old expression that says some things are taught and some things are caught. So we have to model the teamwork. We have to teach the teamwork. And I could just be my mama for one moment. We're going to go back to grade school, and we're going to live in the land of show and tell.
That's a good word. All right, Leo and Evans, we got 2 minutes left. You each get 60 seconds. Talk to us, Leo.
All right. So it is about friendship. It's about relationship. It's about looking for people that have the same heart you do. And so apostles and prophets, they may not be exactly the same because one's rebar and one's concrete. But the fact of the matter is, the problem here is relying on one another to accomplish the job, because the prophet might know the destination, but the apostle knows what the route is to get there. And they have to figure those two things out together.
Man, that's good. That's good. Prophet, go ahead, Evans.
I think in a nutshell, one of the major problems with the prophetic is the Elijah syndrome is still alive and well. And it needs to be remedied. It needs to be seriously addressed in our day and in our generation. That Elijah said, I'm the only prophet. And the Lord had to correct him and say, no, you're not. There are 7,000 that have not bowed the knee.
Come on.
He didn't say there were 7, there were 7,000.
Come on.
So it's important for us to recognize that we're not the only prophets, we're not the only apostles, and that there are other apostolic and prophetic gifts that are essential and necessary for us to connect with, because only Jesus was the only one that was all 5.
Yes, sir.
And I'll leave it at that.
Good word. Renee, close us out.
I was just thinking about how apostles and prophets working together. It's just like there's 5 gifts. There's 5 fingers on your hand. If you were to be missing some of those fingers, you're limited in what you can do. You're never going to reach your full potential until we all start coming together.
Wow. Good word. Well, folks, we did it again. Joe Henry will be a great guy, and he'll give us a little grace. Barry and I have been talking about grace all morning behind the camera. And we went over time. next Friday, number 3 with these great guys. Man, I can't wait. We're gonna get a little more controversial next week. Let me just throw that little nugget out there. Love y'all. See you next Friday. God bless.
Bye.